Basketball is back inside the Dome. Tonight, Syracuse hosts Damon, the first of 2 October exhibitions for the Orange. Hey there, and welcome inside our Newhouse studios here at Syracuse University. Jonathan Hoppe along with Cooper Boardman. Thanks for joining us on this Cuse.com pregame show. A lot to iron out for Syracuse here in the early portions of the season.
Jonathan, this is fun. Game 1 of the 2019 basketball season for Syracuse. It's an opportunity to see the 5 new freshmen and this new-look Syracuse team.
Before we get too far ahead in this season in the first exhibition, let's go back to what happened last year. So much hype surrounding the team, predicted to finish 4th in the ACC. That didn't happen.
Very much an up and down year for Syracuse a year ago. It starts in the non-conference with a loss to Old Dominion, but highlights include that victory over Duke on the road, 95-91. But yeah, early exits in the ACC and NCAA tournaments. And now the question is, what's next for Jim Boeheim's team, right?
Syracuse one and done in the tournament for the first time since 2006. Not what you want to see from the Orange, but they did make it to the tournament. A big reason they did, Elijah Hughes, O'Shea Brissett, Frank Howard, the three-headed monster for the Orange. That's a lot of production to replace.
Those 3 names you just mentioned combined for 52% of the team's points a year ago. Now you got to replace 3 of the team's top 4 in minutes as well. It's minutes and points. Those are the 2 things you're getting from Tyus Battle, O'Shea Brissett, and Frank Howard.
With those guys gone, who's going to replace them? It might be up to one man. The lone returning starter on this team, Elijah Hughes, he's the obvious candidate.
And he was a relative unknown entering last year, and he comes out and he was awesome for Syracuse in the 2018-2019 season. He's the only returning starter for SU. And people forget in that ACC tournament where Tyus Battle was injured, it was Hughes who played every single minute. That's the blueprint now for the 2020 version of this team.
Doesn't really matter what we think, but how about head coach Jim Boeheim in his 44th season with the Orange? He says he was one of our go-to guys last year, and it was his first year. So he's definitely the go-to guy this year. There's no question about that. That credit goes to Syracuse.com, and he even said he's the only player that really will play nearly the entire game.
I'm excited to see how he's going to kind of improve here in 2020. Boeheim said a year ago he's not yet ready to go off the dribble. Well, now when you're the go-to guy, there's going to be so much more emphasis on him with the loss of Battle, Brissett, and Howard. How does he fare, not just spotting up from 3, but also defensively and going inside?
We'll get a look at him and the rest of the team tonight. Coming up, we talk with former SU forward Demetrius Nichols. He's on the call for ACC Network Extra. That's right after this on the Cuse.com pregame show. Thanks for finding us. Exhibition number 1 coming up at 7 o'clock. Syracuse with a big lead on Seattle, halftime in the Dome as the Orange go for their 2nd straight win after that opening night loss to Virginia. Hey there, back inside our Newhouse studios. You know who he is. It's Demetrius Nichols. I'm Jonathan Hoppe. Before we get to more of this SU basketball game, we'll talk a little SU football, a big game in Duke. And our J.D. Rachi was down at Wallace Wade Stadium live. Nobody saw this coming. A blowout win for Syracuse to end their losing streak. First conference win. J.D., how'd they get this done?
Well, I really think it was the defense in the second half. The third quarter alone, Syracuse outscored Duke 21-0, and that's thanks in large part to 3 consecutive drives with takeaways. The first one, a pick 6 for Andre Sisco. They come back 3 plays later. Chris Frederick picks it off, and that sets up another Syracuse touchdown. Next drive, Evan Foster recovers a fumble that Andrew Armstrong stripped, and then they punch it into the end zone, the offense once again. Just a dominant performance. They really got everybody involved in this game. That was really nice to see. It was good to see the running backs really get involved as well. That's really been a sticking point for Syracuse's offense this season. How effective could the running backs be? They were very effective today. Over 115 yards for O'Neal, over 115 yards for Jarvion Howard. Even the true freshman, Jawar Jordan, got his first career touchdown. Overall, fantastic performance from Syracuse today. Defense forcing the turnovers, offense capitalizing on the mistakes for Duke. All around great performance for Syracuse, and their bowl hopes are still alive.
J.D., bowl still a possibility. They've got Louisville next week, and then Wake Forest on Senior Day to close out the season. A great win for SU football. Sticking with ACC basketball, though, that time of year, you got both sports going, a jam-packed day. Let's check out the ACC scoreboard. Non-conference action all across the board. Boston College goes down. They lose to Belmont 100-85. The Bruins went on a 32-9 run against the Eagles. Nicky Popovich, 23 points. That's not enough. A tough loss for BC, and then Virginia. They beat Columbia. The Cavs looking like a really good team again this year.
They are playing very, very well. Their defense is maybe better than last year. They definitely should be able to compete for a national championship this year if they get better on offense.
The hype train kind of slowed down. You're looking at teams like Louisville and Duke, but UVA, they're the defending national champs. You got to beat the man to be the man, right?
Still the champs. And I'm pretty sure the coach has something up his sleeve.
I'm pretty sure he knows a thing or two about defense. Jim Boeheim, he knows something about defense. His team is handling Seattle right now at the half. They look very sharp. A first half, though, we saw Syracuse get off to its best start of the year. Slow starts against Virginia. Slow start against Colgate. Not in this game.
Nope. They're able to share the ball a little bit better. And I think it started, I know it started because of Joe Girard and his energy, his presence that he brings on the floor. And as we see Marek Dolajai, that point forward, that can also pass the ball.
Seattle knocking it down from outside. Aaron Nettles just trying to hang around. This Redhawks team, they've showed some energy. Miles Carter, we knew he could play inside. Going up there against Jesse Edwards, getting the putback to go. Redhawks have a lot of work to do in the second half. Thanks in large part to this man, Elijah Hughes. Talk about Girard all you want, but Hughes is still that guy.
He has to be that leader. He really has to lead this young team and really lead by example and do the right things. You know, last game he had 8 assists. He needs more of that because once he shares the ball, the game will open up better for him to score.
Second half, what we can watch for, more threes. 50% from downtown. That's another thing you can check that we were looking for to start the year for this Syracuse team. Ready to go at SU Soccer Stadium. This is a massive ACC matchup in late September with October right around the corner. Welcome back to this Cuse.com pregame show. Jonathan Hoppe with Tim Leonard. And we'll now take you out to SU Soccer Stadium, our crew calling the game. Jack McMullen and Ian Toner. Guys, thanks for joining us. We've been hyping up this matchup, but I think it's real. Just how big is this game for both teams?
Well, Hop, it's huge, and SU is looking for their first conference win. Pitt, they did have a 2-0 win against Boston College last Friday. They've had a week to recollect, but you always want points in conference play.
Both of these teams have 5 games left apiece in conference play, and as you said, between the two of them, just a single win so far to date. It's more important than ever for them to start racking up these wins in conference play.
Both Pittsburgh and Syracuse have been rotating through goalies so far this season. So what can we expect in net today, guys?
Well, Tim, it's been kind of a different turn of events for either side. There was a goalie battle for Syracuse between Jake Leahy and Christian Miesch. It's going to be Miesch tonight in goal. For Pitt, it's been a matter of who's healthy because you started with Johan Penaranda. He went down in the first game or after the first game. And then Alexander Steinbach, he stuck around, but now it's Ari Aman. We see Aman tonight in goal.
And all Aman has done is rise to the occasion. 2 straight clean sheets coming into tonight. I think this is going to be a defensive test, and especially a goaltender battle for these two squads.
How about for Syracuse? Ryan Raposo, I mean, he was just on fire to start the season. He's cooled off a little bit, pretty quiet in the last 2 games. How does SU get him going again?
The important thing is Raposo needing to create in space. I think defenses have really started to key in on him and adjust their physicality early in the games. If he can distribute from the midfield and open up space for his other teammates, he'll be finding new opportunities along the way.
One thing Syracuse has really been working on, guys, is those set pieces. They struggled a little bit early on in the season. How important are those tonight?
We talked to Coach McIntyre. He understands that it's a point that his team has had to work on, and frankly, during the practice week, they only have so many guys that are able to fully healthy and practice at full strength. So this is something that they're practicing in game situations. So many opportunities they've left on the table so far this year. Now is the time to start cashing in on them and adjust those differences.
And something I definitely want to note with that too, Syracuse, they paced the Atlantic Coast Conference in corners taking. Granted, corners are set pieces. They have not converted into a goal on one of those corners. So they lead the ACC in corners, haven't converted a goal.
Jack and Ian, thanks so much for the time. You can catch these guys at the top of the hour. ACC Network Extra for Syracuse and Pitt. Guys, thanks so much. When we come back, we're not done here on the Cuse.com pregame show. We've got your keys to the game. It's an ACC battle between Syracuse and Pitt. Don't go away here on Cuse.com. Syracuse and Damon separated by just over 2 hours, yet they've never met on a basketball court. That changes tonight with an exhibition game inside the Dome. Back on the Cuse.com pregame show. Thanks for coming back with us. We're pleased to be joined now by Syracuse former Syracuse forward Demetrius Nichols. Demetrius, thanks for joining us. He's got the call on ACC Network Extra. A lot to unfold tonight as we get our first look at this team. What are you looking for?
Well, tonight is going to be an exciting night, even though it's an exhibition game and it doesn't really count. Basketball season is here, and I'm looking, obviously we know about Elijah Hughes. He was the second leading scorer of the team last year. Now he's going to be that guy. But the key is, what I want to know is, who's going to be that second and third scorer? Is it going to be Buddy Boeheim? Is it going to be Jalen Carey? Or could it be one of the outstanding freshmen that we have here?
Now, another thing we're following, Demetrius, that three-point line moving back a little bit. In your senior season with Syracuse, you shot over 40%. You played all across the world, so you know a thing or two about these different lines. How big of an adjustment is it going to be for these guys?
Well, it's a big adjustment, but it's also a positive thing because it creates more space. Guys have more space to go one-on-one, but also a post presence. So when you throw the ball in the post, now the closeout is a longer run. So now the shooters have more time to execute on their shot. And finally, I think it helps the NBA because it helps guys who get drafted into the NBA, the shooters, to adjust to the line a little bit better than before.
Demetrius, great insight. We're looking forward to more of that coming up on 7 o'clock. He's got the call with Brian Higgins at the top of the hour. Thank you very much. But for now, for more on that three-point line, let's send it over to Cooper Boardman.
Jonathan, in the offseason, the NCAA Rules Oversight Panel gets together and they decide we're going to move the three-point line back. Like you said, we heard Demetrius Nichols talk about it. The goal was to clear up some congestion in the lane. And obviously the natural question now is, how does that affect Syracuse? And we're going to take a look at some video from a year ago. This is Elijah Hughes knocking down a three, and he's knocking that down from way beyond the arc. That's a relatively common theme for SU. Here's Tyus Battle, and again, you look at all of this space in here. Yes, Battle has departed, but the sentiment remains the same. Syracuse and Jim Boeheim's team, in a lot of ways, looks for his team to knock down threes from 2-3 feet beyond the arc. And the reality is, in today's AAU age, so many players can stretch the floor. So many players can knock down shots. And here's Buddy Boeheim. This is a crowd favorite of knocking down to three, but he's somebody who Syracuse is going to look to as a starter, and Boeheim is going to have an opportunity to knock down threes from well beyond the arc here in 2019 to 2020 season. That's the offensive side. One thing to note as well, defensively for Syracuse with that zone, Jim Boeheim kind of happy about moving back the three-point line because what it does is it forces teams to take tougher shots, tougher three-pointers, something the Orange are definitely well accustomed to. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Orange's projected starting lineup tonight, plus what you need to know about Damon. This is the Cuse.com pregame show.
Syracuse rolls past Damon inside the Dome. A very strong performance to start the year. Hey there, thanks for joining us on the Cuse.com post-game show. Jonathan Hoppe back with Cooper Boardman. Going into this game, we knew Elijah Hughes was going to have a different role. He showed that tonight with more than 20 points.
Yeah, it's one thing to say he's going to be the guy. It's another thing, and yes, against D2 competition, but it's another thing to say, all right, go out there and be the guy. He goes out there tonight and asserts himself. We saw it outside, we saw it inside. You got to feel good about that.
We're now joined by Syracuse forward Elijah Hughes. Elijah, thanks for talking with us. We know you've played with these guys in Italy. What was it like out on the Dome floor for the first time?
It's always good playing home. It's home, so it's great to play here in front of our fans, and it was a lot of fun.
Elijah, how do you feel like your role has changed with the team this year, and how do you think you played tonight with over 20 points?
Just my confidence, really. Coach put a lot of trust in me. All the coaches did, all my teammates did. So it was really just my part, believing in myself and putting a bunch of confidence in myself.
Elijah Hughes, thank you so much. There goes Syracuse forward Elijah Hughes. He had a really strong game tonight, and that's a reason that Syracuse rolls in this one. Bit sloppy in the second half, but we talk about the pacing. That's going to mean more turnovers as Syracuse turns up the gas offensively.
20 total turnovers for Jim Boeheim's team tonight. And yeah, that's not necessarily the number you want, especially against a Division II opponent. That said, you're right. When you're trying to push the pace a little bit more, and the other part of this is, especially when you're trying to do this with a bunch of different freshmen and working them in, those turnovers are going to happen. So the 11 second half turnovers, yes, you know Jim Boeheim's not going to be ecstatic about it, but at the same time, it comes with the territory.
So Hughes, he's the guy we all know, but we want to see him in the new role. How about all the freshmen? And they were a big reason why Syracuse got off to a very fast start today. The Orange firing on all cylinders when it comes to those freshmen.
Absolutely, they were fun. Hughes had 24, but how about 7 different players with 8+ points? The freshmen were a big part of that.
Elijah Hughes really solid as well. He was getting it done inside. He had a few three-pointers to go along with it. So Elijah Hughes, coach wants to change his game a bit and get him to drive. We saw that as well as the shooting.
Jim Boeheim said last year, Elijah Hughes is really good. We're happy with him. However, he needs to be able to get inside. That wasn't the case a year ago. He didn't need to do that with players like Tyus Battle and O'Shea Brissett. Now he has to do it.
Andrew Sisko, he's the big for Damon, the guy we circled ahead of time. He showed out tonight, getting involved inside, but the SU big men did hold their own.
Absolutely, Jesse Edwards was the name to know. His length inside, the rebound, snatching that over the top of players, but also what everybody else was able to do, getting inside. Even Robert Braswell made his presence known inside with 17 points.
Braswell's sort of the guy this year that you can circle, especially in this first game. Sure, he's not one of the magnificent freshmen, as people are saying, but he's someone that didn't get a lot of love last year. Now back as a sophomore, he can take that next step.
What's not to like? Defensively, he defended very well on the perimeter. And in addition to that, what he does on the offensive side of things, especially towards the end of that game, Syracuse was looking to feed him inside, and he was delivering.
So what's your biggest takeaway from this game as Syracuse wraps up its first exhibition game against Damon? Didn't look great in the second half. How do you think Jim Boeheim's feeling right about now?
Jim Boeheim, we know, is never ecstatic about things necessarily, but you have to feel good. And yes, the second half a little bit shakier than the first, but this team, when you play Division II opponents, you're looking to do one thing, and that's get everybody involved, get everybody comfortable. And that's what happens tonight. We mentioned it. 7 different players with 8+ points. Elijah Hughes is the dude in this game with 20+, but everybody gets involved. That's a big little smiley face next to it for Syracuse.